Hey, good evening, and thank you for joining us on the Scabbard tonight. Uh, Game night, the coming thick and fast. We had the game against Minnesota last night, and tonight we have Pittsburgh. We're actually in Pittsburgh, taking on the Penguins. First of three matchups tonight. We'll talk about those in a moment. But it's been a busy news day for the Buffalo Sabres. It's been a really strange news day for the Buffalo Sabres. Let's get into it. Yeah, I'm not really vibing too much with what's going on today. But good news though is that Matthias Samuelsson is returning from injury, so he'll be in the lineup tonight. Uh, Alex Tuck is very close, but he won't play tonight. We'll likely see him Tuesday as we play Boston for the first time this season, which will be a tough game, and it'll be good to have him back for that game. But the curious news today, so last night, Matt Savoy skated for 3 minutes and 55 seconds during that game. Everyone hyped up the fact that he was making his NHL debut, and he barely saw the ice. Um, I don't even remember him on the ice. They cut to him on the bench a couple times, but and then we find out today that he was sent back to Wenatchee, the Western Hockey League team. He was with the Winnipeg Ice last season. Winnipeg moved to Wenatchee, Washington, and is playing there this season. Um, just curious, like, why? Why did you go through the entire rigmarole of sending him to Rochester for the conditioning assignment, and then bringing up for one game for 3 minutes and 55 seconds, and then send him immediately back down to the juniors? Now, we know that he's going to end up going to Canada's World Junior Camp, competing for a roster spot. I think the fact that he's got 3 minutes and 55 seconds of NHL experience under his belt, some AHL experience now as well, um, will kind of give him a leg up in the battle for being on the Canadian junior roster. But I just don't. This whole situation's left a bad taste in my mouth for what they're doing. Um, we've all been kind of like kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge that they're kind of finagling the roster so that they can give these kids a chance. But if you're only going to give them 3 minutes and 55 seconds and then send them back to junior, what was the point with Matt Savoy? And granted, the last 5 days since he got called up from Rochester, maybe he showed that he wasn't ready for NHL primetime. But at that point, send him down. Don't skate him in a game, which you basically shorthanded your team for the entire game because you weren't playing one of your forwards more than 4 minutes in the game. I mean that was just it makes no sense. It means essentially you were playing 60 and 11 forwards for the most part. We did see some line shuffling last night. That trend's going to continue tonight. So we get Matthias Samuelsson back. He's going to come in. They're keeping Ryan Johnson in the lineup. So we're going to go 11-7, 11 forward, 7D on the back end. Um, yeah, I don't know. It worked against Toronto, but, I wouldn't go to this tactic too much. It feels like, yeah, and I get that we're getting guys healthy and some guys are not quite there yet, but, it feels like we're playing around with this too much, and I think just ice a healthy lineup, 12 and 6, 2 healthy goaltenders, and go with it. Don't try and do this whole, trying to finagle, these 2 kids into the lineup because Benson looked good in the first couple of games, but he did fall off towards the end. You send Savoy back. It seems like we experimented with a couple of young kids that aren't quite ready for prime time, but we've got guys down in Rochester that are getting there. Um, Ryan Johnson comes up. He's played really well the last his 3 games that he's been up. Um, Rusek is, I think, earned a spot on in the lineup. If you're looking for a guy that's going to end up replacing Olson, I think Rusek's the guy. Um, and then you've got 2 studs down in Rochester that are just chomping at the bit to get up here in um, Yuri Kulik and Isaac Roseanne. I think Roseanne's a little further back than Kulik, but Kulik is just playing lights out. So but yeah, let's go to the stat of the night from last night. It was a weird game, but congrats to Tage Thompson. He got 100th assist in the game, or 100th career assist in the game, not this season, of course. But coming from where he came when he was traded to the Buffalo Sabres, everyone was saying that he was just a tall guy that was going to end up being a bust, and has really stacked the points. Not just this season, but the previous 2 seasons, kind of showing that the previous 2 seasons aren't a fluke. Tage Thompson is a phenomenal talent, and he's rounding out his game. It's not just that he is this tremendous scoring talent, but he's adding a defensive element to his game that wasn't there. I mean, they're trusting him on the PK. Um, you know, and it's great to have a guy that's as tall as Tage Thompson on the PK, long stick. Watch out for the Blackhawks. You know what? The Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks are an interesting case. I think they may be in for a little bit longer of a rebuild than they think. I think they tore it down too much, and they gave away too much last season. Sure, it got them Connor Bedard, but now they're having to rebuild from scratch essentially. They've done okay, in the early part of this season, but I do think as we go throughout the season, some of these guys that they brought in, like Foligno and Taylor Hall, these kinds of guys, they're going to be used at the trade deadline to bring in new players or draft picks to help build the franchise for the future um, around a Connor Bedard. So maybe Taylor Hall gets you a first or second round pick. Foligno probably a second round pick. But this is all trade capital draft capital to build a franchise. But it's going to take a little bit, I think, for the Chicago Blackhawks. But let's talk about the game last night. So the Minnesota Wild. It was the first half of the game was ugly. If it wasn't for Devin Levi, that could have been a 6-2 game. Um, he stood on his head. He was only beaten by 2 cross crease power play passes. Um, the second one made it interesting going down the stretch. Um, but face-offs continue to be an issue. We lost 40 of 65 draws, so only 15 draws we won that night. It was very evident, especially on the power play. Our special teams were bad. You know, when you lose, and I watched they kept trotting Cousins into the face-off circle, and I love Cousins. Cousins is a great player, but he's got to get better at faceoffs because lost almost every one of them last night, especially in the power play. And if you lose the opening draw in the power play, you're losing 20 seconds on your power play. And if you're losing 20, and the Sabres entries have not been good this season, so you're spending over half your power play just trying to get in the damn zone after losing the initial faceoff. Um, so that's why the power play is not doing particularly well. There, you've got no face-off ability, and then you're having issues getting into the zone. Just simply winning the face-off back gets you zone time. You don't have to chase the puck and try and get through the trap at the blue line. So, um, but yeah, the 2 power play goals scored by the Minnesota Wild. They're 2 goals of the game. Um, Cross crease passes or cross ice passes down low, set up Kaprizov and I can't remember the other score, but it was maybe Zuccarello. It was a I will say that win was just a result of the goaltending last night because Levi kept them in the game, allowed them to get the lead, kind of a demoralizing goal for the Wild because they were playing really well, just couldn't score against Levi. And then we get the opening goal from Yoki Haru, who I spent the last episode just completely roasting for his effort in the previous game, and he had a semi decent game. I think that's the mark of a good professional is that they take a bad effort and then they redouble their efforts in the next game and learn from their mistakes. So glad to see that from Yoki Haru last night versus the previous game um, against the Hurricanes. But yeah, Levi was outstanding, and then Savoy only getting 5 shifts and 355 was just Again, why? Why did you do that to a young kid? I hope they had a good conversation with him before they sent him down, 'cause, um, it just doesn't make sense, and that's kind of one of those things can really sour a player on an organization by doing games like that. So, hopefully there was a good valid reason. And I know that Don Granado recently met with the media. I haven't seen any results from that other than, Matthias Samuelson coming back into the lineup and going 11-7. So, but tonight's game, we were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are 6-6-0, seventh in the Metro. Now they had they recovered nicely. They had a nice Western road swing. Won three consecutive games against San Jose, where they dropped a 10 spot, which is not uncommon. Uh, against the Sharks. Sharks have played better, but they got roped two consecutive games, giving up 10 goals. Um, then they beat Anaheim and they beat LA. San Jose and Anaheim, maybe a little bit more expected. Anaheim's played better this season than I think some people have expected. But San Jose was an expected win. That win against LA is in LA is a good quality victory. So no, something to bounce back on, but they're back from a long road trip, which may play into the Sabres' favor. Teams returning from long road trips tend to have a bad outing that first game back. So, but no surprise, Sidney Crosby leads the team in goals. Jake Gensel leads in points and assists. We know these guys. They have terrorized the Buffalo Sabres for years. Um, Gensel, very serviceable player, along with Brian Rust on that first line. But there's another guy that we need to look out for, and we'll talk about him in a moment. Goaltending really has not been the issue. All three goaltenders have pretty good goals against average and save percentage over 900, like 911 save percentage, and uh, goals against average under three. The issue early on in the season was scoring. They got healthy against the Sharks, so it doesn't look quite as bad. But 110 goal game, you remove that from their season, it's been a struggle for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get points, and score. So that's been the issue. Um, but Tristan Jari, Alex Nedeljkovic, who is injured now, and Magnus Hellberg are backstopping the Pittsburgh Penguins, and have done a pretty good job so far this year. But this is the first of three matchups with the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight in Pittsburgh. Then we get just before, right around Thanksgiving, the home game against them on the 24th, so a little less than 2 weeks away from that. And then on January 6th, we have a game in Pittsburgh. Um, so last season we had 2 home games and 1 road game against Pittsburgh. This year we're returning the favor, doing 2 in Pittsburgh and 1 in Buffalo. Um, Hopefully at some point they kind of figure out how to balance the schedule out a little bit. Um, I don't like playing just 3 games against certain opponents and 2 games just against other opponents within the other division. So let's figure the schedule out somewhat. Um, but that's what it is. Sabres were 1-1-1 against the Penguins last season. They won the first game 6-3. That was the debut of the all white uniforms with the white go ahead, which I like the white go ahead jersey. I hated the pants with it. Um, that just needed something to break it up because it was too much white. But they got their first victory in that 6-3. Then they lost overtime game. Might remember that one. That's where Jeff Skinner went after. I think it was Jake Gensel and cross checked him in the head. Ended up getting a 2 game suspension for it. Um, and which one of those was a return match in Pittsburgh where we lost 3-1. But we lost that game in overtime because Skinner had a 5 minute major on that play. So. Um, Sabres got points in 2 of the 3 games, so they got 3 points in that season series last year, but did give up that crucial point, as we all know that they missed the playoffs by 1 game, so or 1 point. So anytime they dropped points last season, you can point to it like that could have been a point that we got if Skinner had kept his cool that night. Um, let's talk about the Penguins' predicted lines from Daily Face-Off. Uh, no surprise that first line: Gensel, Crosby, Rust. Second line: Riley Smith came over from the Vegas Golden Knights this offseason with Malkin and Raquel. Drew O'Connor, circle this dude's name, especially. I the Sabres need to circle his name definitely because in the preseason he roasted us for like 4 goals in 2 games. Was just always scoring against the Buffalo Sabres. Um, so yeah, circle that name, Drew O'Connor, Lars Eller, and Radim Zohorna on that third line, and the fourth line of Matt Nieto, Noel Achari, and Jeff Carter, the ageless. Well, he is actually aged, but Jeff Carter playing on the fourth line. That is the forward lines for the Pittsburgh Penguins. On the back end, Ryan Graves, Chris Letang, uh, Michael Pedersen, and Eric Carlson. I think it's Ryan Shea and Chad Ruedel. Former Sabre alert. He had a cup of coffee with the Sabres. Was signed out of college. I think it was at the University of Denver. Played half the season with the Sabres, and then ended up signing with the Pittsburgh Penguins when he had his first opportunity. So Chad Ruedel, former Sabre, so always watch out for those former Sabres. They tend to play well against us. And then last but not least, the goalies for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Tristan Jarry is slated to start. He was off the last game against the Kings for some matter. Didn't really specify whether it was personal or something else, but he's back. Magnus Hellberg is going to back him up tonight. The Penguin scratches, Ludwig and Alex Nedeljkovic are on the IR and will not play tonight. Nedeljkovic, I think it's long term for him. So, um, but Nedeljkovic came out like a comet streaking across the sky, playing for the Carolina Hurricanes. Thought he was going to be the next big guy, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, Carolina traded him off to Detroit, and don't remember. Yeah, he just had kind of a miserable season in Detroit, and signed in the offseason with the Pittsburgh Penguins, so he's there. So it's going to be a little bit of interesting thing. I'm using lines in quotes for the Sabres tonight. Their lines that they're going 11-7, so you're going to see lots of mixing and matching, but the top line, Skinner, Thompson, Cousins. Second line, Greenway, Middlestat, Paterka. Third line, generally our fourth line, which is Gergensons, Yost, and Okposo. And then our extras, I believe, are going to be Rusek and Krebs. It could be Olofsson, although Olofsson's, I can't even remember him being on the ice. Like I think I saw more of Matt Savoy than I have of Olofsson. So and Rusek got crucial minutes towards the end of that game last night. I think he had a 3 minute shift there towards the end, protecting the net, and that's the kind of player he is. He was out there with Greenway and Thompson towards the end of the game. So good to see that Lucas Rusek has kind of earned a little niche for himself here on the in the lineup. And I think it's going to be at the expense of Olison going forward. So because it makes no sense to have Olsen on the third line. Um, Either he's scoring you goals or he's completely useless. So defensive pairings tonight. Again, we're going to say pairings in quotation marks because we're going with 7. So you're going to see rotations all tonight. But normal top line or top pairing of Daly and Samuelson, Power, Yoki Haru, Clifton, and Eric Johnson. And then our extra is going to be Ryan Johnson fitting in wherever he is needed. So that'll be an interesting night. Our starting goaltender is Ukko Pekka Luukkonen. Kind of tempted to go back to Levi after he stood on his head last night, but Lucan also stood on his head in that Carolina game. If it wasn't for that, we would not have got the regulation, the OT point for that game. Um, so both goalies are going really well right now. I'd like to keep that going, and hopefully, UPL can and take the 2 points in the back to back game this second half of the back to back. Um, and which the Sabres have played. This is their third back to back this season. Um, Last night was the first time they won the first half of the back to back. They've won the second game of the back to back in the previous two. So hopefully they continue that trend and keep the second game of the back to back with the winning ways. Let's see. Our scratches tonight. This is kind of going back in and out. I got Samuelson on there. This was a late addition to the lineup, but Bryson healthy, Olafson healthy. Alex Tuck is still day to day, although he's very close. Byro's still out. Comrie, Quinn, Benson, and then Samuelson, of course, is back in the lineup tonight, so that's great. Tonight's odds per DraftKings: play responsibly, play responsibly, play responsibly. So Buffalo is getting a goal and a half, being on a road team, and the over under is 7. So Buffalo needs if Buffalo loses by a goal, they you still win, and you bet Buffalo, you still win. Although I would like to see Buffalo win by more than one goal. So um, that's it for the. So last night I did predict a goal scorer for Dan Fishman, who was asked me about who do I predict to score, and there was a anytime scorer. Oh, you're saying under for this game, Heidi? Could be. Sabres were very defensive last night, and being on a second game of a back to back, you might say that they may have a little less energy. Um, but the last time they were on a second game of back to back, they beat Toronto 6-4. So, and now Toronto's defense is an unmitigated dumpster fire right now. I get that, but Sabres can put the puck in the net. Penguins show, at least against San Jose, they can put the puck in the net. They still got Sidney Crosby and Jake Gensel and all those good guys on the team. So, um, it could be a 2-1 defensive battle. It could be a 7-6 barn burger. Who knows? But so last night I picked JJ Peterka to score. He did score the third and game winning goal of the game. So won Dan some money. Awesome. Oh, Heidi says 4-2. So she's got the under with a score prediction. Sabres 4-2. From your lips to God's ear, I would like to see that. But for my prediction on who's going to score tonight, it is Mr. Casey Middlestat. Middlestat did everything but score last night. He was playing a house of fire, um, and I think he is. Kind of he's been the straw that's kind of stirring the drink offensively for the Sabres. Um, Even when they haven't been going well in the offensive zone. Like last night when the Sabres were just not getting a whole lot of puck possession early in the game. Casey Middlestat was skating with the puck and trying to keep it. So he is my pick to click tonight. Again, don't take this as betting advice. I don't offer betting advice, but that is my prediction for who's going to score for the Sabres. At least one of the goal scorers for the Sabres is Casey Middlestat. Let's do our player profile for tonight. I roasted him last episode, but I will praise him tonight. Henry Yoki Haru is a let's see how tall is he? He's a 6 foot, 199-pound defenseman out of where is he? Oulu, Finland. He was drafted 29th overall by the Chicago Blackhawks in the 2017 NHL draft. He played a season in Chicago, part of a season in Chicago, um, and was traded to the Buffalo Sabres on July 9th of 2019 in exchange for Alex Nylander. Alex Nylander was the first overall pick for Buffalo when Buffalo held the draft in 2016, and was an absolute flop. He's the lesser talented Nylander brother. His brother Michael is up in Toronto scoring goals aplenty. We did not get so lucky with Alex. Alex is now, curiously enough, he's in the Pittsburgh Penguins system, playing with Wilkes-Barre in the AHL. So you can say that the Sabres won that trade at least. There's been criticism of Yoki Haru thinking that he should be scoring more than he is. Um, I don't dispute that. He's been pretty consistent, 3 goals a season, mid-teens in points each year. There are times where he has brain cramps like he did with the game against the Canes, but I think he does generally work well with Owen Power. He did work well with, Rasmus Dahlin for a little bit. So, a guy that you can slot in somewhere in the top 4, as needed. But as guys start to develop in the NHL, we might see, Yoki Haru push down the lineup. So, but yeah, this is his 4th season, with the Buffalo Sabres, and, he's played relatively well. He's got, international record. He's won gold at the 2016 Under-18 championships, gold for, the World Junior Championships in 2019 with Finland, and then at the World Championships with, Slovakia. So he's lacking a, Olympic gold medal and a, Stanley Cup, but, he can be in one of those. It's not a triple crown, but, yeah, that's what he's lacking. But he's had a pretty decent international career, and yeah, good, serviceable defenseman. That is Henry Jokiharju. But let's go to our keys to the game. So I talked about it earlier. Keep an eye on Drew O'Connor. He roasted us in the preseason. So if you're looking for a guy who might score against the Buffalo Sabres, and pick that as an anytime scorer, maybe Drew O'Connor. They got to manage energy coming off a tough game last night against Minnesota. Um, yeah, manage your energy, try and even it out, try and get going early. So be ready from the puck drop. And keep your energy up as much as possible. Short shifts. I think it's going to be more difficult with the 11-7 match lineup versus having a traditional lineup of keeping short shifts. Although you can float players in and out of lineups to give other players more rest. Um, I don't know. We'll see if it works again tonight, like it did against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe Granada goes to this a lot more. So I don't know. I think you're better off going with the 12-6, but on a pinch, 11-7. All right, on this date, November 11th, 2006, by the way, happy Veterans Day. I got it scrolling there at the bottom. Happy to Veterans Day to all those who served. Thank you so much. Appreciate your service. But on November 11th, 2006, Drew Stafford scored his first goal in the NHL and as a Sabre in a 5-4 win over Philly, which is, doubly good because you beat Philly too. So I appreciate that. Drew Stafford was a good player for the Buffalo Sabres for many years. But yeah, that was a good time having Drew Stafford come into his own that second season after the lockout and provide secondary scoring for the Buffalo Sabres. On the farm, Rochester 7-2-2, leading the North Division. They beat Utica last night 4-3. I will call it Virgin Night last night in Utica as all 7 goal scorers were scoring their first goal of the season in the AHL. So good on the Rochester Americans. They said like 18 different skaters from their opening night lineup were skating last night for Rochester, and for them to win, that's a good thing. But yeah, so they won last night. They play Utica again tonight, I believe, but I think it's in either it's a home and home, so I'm not sure if it's in Utica or in Rochester. I forgot to look at who hosted last night. Jacksonville Icemen in the ECHL. They're 4-2-1. I have not played since our last broadcast, but they are playing tonight versus the Atlanta Gladiators, who don't play in Atlanta. They play outside of Atlanta, but I digress. But that's the farm report. We'll take that for what it's worth. But enjoy the game tonight. It is 6:59. The Sabres, the MSG pregame show is going to start with Marty and Duffer. So check that out. Go Buffalo. Let's take home these 2 points against the Penguins because the Penguins have been kind of a pain in our ass for many years. So really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday night against the hated Bruins. So be ready for a grudge match on Tuesday night. Have a good one, everybody.